It's February 16th, 2026, 5 a.m. in New York. The Sun is at 27 degrees Aquarius, and the Moon is also moving through Aquarius, creating a clear, almost electric awareness field in the sky. Mercury is at 15 degrees Pisces, newly joined by Saturn at 0 degrees Pisces. Venus has just entered Aries. Mars and Jupiter are both in Cancer. Pluto is early in Aquarius, and Uranus is sitting at 27 degrees Taurus. Even though the title speaks to a Virgo moon theme of softening perfection, today's sky is not about tightening control. It's about seeing the pattern underneath the control. When the Sun and Moon share Aquarius, something shifts internally. You step slightly outside of yourself. Emotions are still there, but they are not the loudest voice in the room. Instead, there is perspective. You may wake up feeling mentally alert, as if your mind has already begun scanning your life for structure. Where is this going? What is the long-term arc? Why does this situation keep repeating? Aquarius doesn't pull you into drama, it pulls you into observation. And because Pluto is also in Aquarius, this observation can go deeper than usual. It's not just about noticing that you're tired or frustrated, it's about noticing the system you've built around being tired or frustrated. The role you play, the expectations you carry, the version of yourself that keeps everything functioning. At the same time, Mercury and Saturn in Pisces soften the edges of that clarity. You're not cold, you're not detached in a sterile way. There is a quiet, emotional undertone beneath the analysis, a sensitivity that says, yes, I see the pattern, and I also feel what it costs. This is the inner shift of the day. It's less about fixing what's wrong and more about recognizing what you've been trying to perfect. Not from panic, not from shame, but from a place of clear awareness. Today's sky doesn't push you into action, it invites you into perspective. And sometimes, perspective is the beginning of real change. With both the Sun and Moon in Aquarius, the shift begins in the mind. But the body is never far behind. You may not notice it immediately. It might start as a subtle difference in how you wake up, a slight tightness in your shoulders before you even check your phone, a quiet hum of alertness in your chest. Aquarius brings clarity, but Mars and Jupiter in Cancer make that clarity land in the nervous system. This is where today stops being theoretical. You can see the pattern, the overcommitment, the over-explaining, the constant preempting of other people's needs. But the moment you imagine doing it differently, your body answers first. Your throat tightens at the thought of saying no. Your stomach drops when you picture disappointing someone. Your jaw locks at the idea of being misunderstood. That's not drama, that's memory. That reaction is not weakness, it's stored memory. Mercury and Saturn in Pisces add another layer to this. Pisces is porous. It absorbs tone, mood, atmosphere. You may find that conversations linger in your body longer than usual. A short email can echo for hours. A comment that normally rolls off your back feels heavier, not because it's objectively worse, but because your sensitivity is turned up. And with Saturn newly in Pisces, there's a quiet realization happening. The structures you've built to manage your life, the routines, the coping strategies, the emotional discipline, might not fully support your inner world anymore. You can feel where something is misaligned before you can articulate it. Mars in Cancer often shows up as irritability before it shows up as insight. You may feel protective of your time in a way that surprises you. Lower tolerance for small talk, less patience for chaos, a stronger desire to retreat into your own space. That instinct isn't antisocial, it's regulatory. Jupiter in Cancer expands whatever emotional state is present. If you're calm, it deepens the calm. If you're overstimulated, it amplifies the overwhelm. So today, small stresses can feel disproportionately loud in the body, not because you're regressing, but because you're more attuned. Notice the early signals. Do your shoulders rise slightly when someone asks for just one more thing? Does your breathing become shallow when you open your inbox? Does your stomach tighten when you think about a conversation you've been postponing? Aquarius gives you the pattern. Cancer gives you the sensation. Pisces gives you the emotional undertone. Today is not just about seeing where you strive for perfection. It's about noticing where that striving lives physically. Because before you change a behavior, you feel the tension that sustains it. And sometimes the first shift is not in what you do, it's in recognizing the body's quiet signal that says, this is heavier than it needs to be. When this mix of Aquarius clarity and Cancer sensitivity moves into daily life, it shows up in very practical places. You might open your laptop in the morning and immediately see how your workflow is structured, which tasks actually matter, which ones you keep carrying out of habit. Aquarius energy is efficient in that way. It highlights the system. You may feel an urge to reorganize your calendar, archive old files, or unsubscribe from newsletters that no longer serve you. That impulse isn't random. It's the mind trying to reduce friction. But as the day unfolds, Mercury and Saturn in Pisces can make communication feel heavier than expected. You may draft an email and find yourself rereading it multiple times, adjusting the tone so it doesn't sound too sharp, too distant, too emotional. You might replay a meeting in your head long after it ends, wondering if you said too much or not enough. This is where the theme quietly turns personal. You see the structure of your work life clearly, but you also feel the pressure to manage how you're perceived, to get the wording just right, to anticipate reactions, to sand down every edge before friction even has a chance to form. That's not productivity, that's control working overtime. In relationships, Venus in Aries may bring a quiet impatience with ambiguity. You may notice less tolerance for guessing games or emotional vagueness. If something feels off, you might feel a stronger urge to address it directly. At the same time, Chiron in Aries can make that directness feel exposed. You may hover over a text message before sending it. You may start a sentence and then soften it, add disclaimers, apologize in advance. The daily opportunity here is subtle. It's not about making a grand declaration. It's about noticing how much energy you spend trying to perfect your delivery. Mars and Jupiter in Cancer can also influence how you move through your environment. You might feel more protective of your personal space, more selective about social plans, a bit drained by noise or emotional intensity. If you ignore that signal and keep pushing, irritability can creep in by late afternoon, not because you're incapable, but because your system is asking for containment. Even small decisions today can reveal the pattern. Do you respond immediately to every message, or do you allow yourself time? Do you volunteer for extra tasks out of habit, or do you pause to assess capacity? Do you keep conversations surface level to avoid discomfort, or do you name what's actually true in a measured way? None of these moments are dramatic, but they accumulate. Today touches work, communication, and boundaries in quiet ways. It shows you where perfectionism leaks into your schedule, where over-responsibility hides inside professionalism, where emotional caretaking disguises itself as maturity. The opportunity isn't to overhaul your life in one afternoon. It's to catch one moment where you would normally overcorrect and choose a slightly softer response instead. At the center of today is a pattern that can be easy to miss because it looks so functional on the surface. It's control disguised as competence. And competence is hard to question because it looks like strength. With the Sun and Moon in Aquarius, you can clearly see how things operate. You understand the workflow. You anticipate the emotional temperature of a room. You know how to adjust your tone, your timing, your posture to keep things smooth. That skill has likely served you well. It makes you reliable, capable, mature. But when you layer in Mercury and Saturn in Pisces, plus Mars and Jupiter in Cancer, something softer is exposed underneath that competence. The urge to perfect your responses may not be about excellence at all. It may be about safety. Where have you been trying to perfect your emotional regulation so no one has to deal with your discomfort? Where have you been editing yourself mid-sentence to avoid tension? Where have you been rehearsing conversations in your head so you don't risk being misunderstood? Aquarius shows you the pattern. Pisces and Cancer show you the cost. Venus in Aries adds a subtle pressure to stop over-polishing. There's a desire to be direct, to speak cleanly, to stop layering every sentence with disclaimers. But Chiron in Aries reminds you that directness can feel like exposure. If you're used to managing everyone's comfort, saying one simple, unbuffered truth can feel risky. So the real pattern isn't just perfectionism, it's protection. You learned at some point that staying composed, staying competent, staying a step ahead kept you safe. It minimized conflict. It reduced unpredictability. It maintained connection. And now, with Pluto in Aquarius, you're beginning to see that this identity, the one who holds everything together flawlessly, may be heavier than you realized. Perfection becomes a subtle leak of energy, not because you're doing something wrong, but because you're doing too much emotional management behind the scenes. Today's sky doesn't demand that you drop that role entirely. It simply illuminates it. It allows you to notice where control has become automatic, where competence has turned into self-silencing, where "I've got it" has replaced "I need a moment." The core pattern of the day is not about failure. It's about softening the reflex to overcorrect. It's about recognizing that not every pause needs to be filled. Not every awkward moment needs to be repaired instantly. Not every emotion needs to be optimized before it's expressed. And in that recognition, something relaxes. Not dramatically, not publicly, just enough for you to feel the difference between being in control and being at ease. This pattern is surfacing now because of how these transits are layering on top of each other. When both the Sun and Moon move through Aquarius, the spotlight shifts from emotion to structure. Aquarius energy is systemic. It reveals the architecture of your habits, your roles, your unspoken contracts with other people. It pulls you out of the emotional swirl and places you in the observer seat. But observation alone can feel sterile. That's where Mercury and Saturn in Pisces change the tone. Mercury in Pisces doesn't think in bullet points. It thinks in impressions. It notices emotional undercurrents. Saturn, newly in Pisces, begins asking a quiet question. Do the structures you've built actually support your inner life, or do they simply keep everything functioning on the outside? You may realize that your schedule is efficient, but your nervous system is tired. That your communication is polished, but your feelings are backlogged. That your identity as the reliable one has been organized so tightly that there is little room left for softness. Mars and Jupiter in Cancer bring this into the body. Cancer is protective. It cares about safety, home, emotional containment. When Mars moves through Cancer, action becomes defensive or protective rather than assertive. Jupiter expands that instinct. So if you've been overextending, today the body may amplify its protest. That protest is not random, it's information. Uranus in Taurus adds subtle instability around what you've defined as secure. Taurus likes predictability. Uranus disrupts it gently but persistently. You may feel a low-level restlessness about routines you once relied on, not because they are bad, but because they may be outdated. And Neptune at 0 degrees Aries suggests something new is trying to form in your sense of self. A different way of initiating, a different relationship to desire, but it's still foggy. You can sense the impulse without having full clarity yet. Put together, the sky isn't pushing you to make a dramatic move. It's highlighting the gap between outer structure and inner truth. Aquarius exposes the system. Pisces softens the ego. Cancer sensitizes the body. Taurus questions stability. Aries whispers about a new identity. So the pattern of perfection isn't appearing out of nowhere. It's being illuminated because the scaffolding that held it up is being examined from multiple angles. Not to tear it down, but to see whether it still fits who you are becoming. Here's where the reframe happens. For a long time, perfection may have felt like proof of growth, like evidence that you've matured, that you're self-aware, that you don't overreact anymore, that you've done the work. You became the composed one, the prepared one, the one who thinks things through before speaking, the one who can hold tension without falling apart. And that is real development. But today's sky invites a softer interpretation. With Aquarius illuminating the system and Cancer sensitizing the body, you may begin to see that some of your maturity is actually hypervigilance. Some of your composure is preemptive self-protection. Some of your perfection is an attempt to eliminate unpredictability before it has the chance to touch you. That doesn't make you broken, it makes you adaptive. Pisces placements remind you that the nervous system remembers. Saturn in Pisces is not here to shame you for coping. It's here to ask whether those coping strategies still serve the version of you that exists now. Pluto in Aquarius deepens this realization. The identity of being the one who holds it all together may have formed in a time when it was necessary, when chaos required structure, when emotional volatility required someone to stay steady. But what if that role has continued past its expiration date? What if the urge to perfect everything isn't a personality trait, but an old agreement with the past? When you see the pattern from Aquarius, and you feel the strain from Cancer, and you soften the judgment with Pisces, a new understanding emerges. You are not trying to be flawless because you crave superiority. You are trying to be flawless because at some point, being flawless felt safer than being seen. And safety doesn't come from perfect performance. It comes from regulation, from knowing you can tolerate imperfection without losing connection, from trusting that a pause, an awkward sentence, a delayed response will not collapse your world. The reframe isn't dramatic, it's simply this: you don't have to earn stability by over-managing everything. You can allow yourself to be human in the middle of the structure. And that shift, subtle as it is, changes the tone of the entire day. So how do you move through a day like this without turning awareness into self-criticism? The first step is to let Aquarius do what it does best. Observe without immediately optimizing. If you notice a pattern, resist the urge to fix it on the spot. Simply name it. I tend to over-explain. I rush to smooth things over. I volunteer before checking my capacity. Naming is enough for now. As the morning unfolds, you might feel mentally clear. Use that clarity gently. Organize what truly needs attention. Adjust one small structure in your day that reduces unnecessary pressure. Let the system support you rather than prove you. Midday, when Mercury and Saturn in Pisces slow communication, simplify instead of perfecting. If you find yourself rewriting the same sentence 5 times, pause. Ask yourself what the core message is. Then let it be simple. You are allowed to be clear without being flawless. When Venus in Aries nudges you toward honesty, experiment with measured directness. Not a speech, not a confrontation, just one clean sentence. I can't take that on today. Or, I need a little more time to think about that. Notice how your body reacts. Breathe through the initial tension instead of retreating into over-accommodation. As the day moves toward evening, Mars and Jupiter in Cancer may heighten your need for emotional containment. Give yourself something grounding, a slower meal, a quieter room, a familiar routine that feels safe. This isn't indulgence, it's recalibration. And throughout the day, try one small internal practice. Before correcting yourself, pause for a single breath. Notice the reflex to adjust, to perfect, to smooth. Then ask, is this necessary or is this habit? You don't need to eliminate the habit today. You only need to interrupt it once. Because integration doesn't come from dramatic declarations. It comes from small, regulated shifts. A slightly softer tone with yourself, a slightly firmer boundary with others. A slightly slower response where you would normally rush. The sky is not asking you to dismantle your competence. It's inviting you to let your competence coexist with humanity. And that is a much steadier foundation to build from. By the end of this day, nothing dramatic may have happened on the outside. Your job may look the same. Your relationships may look the same. Your schedule may still be full. But internally, something subtle can shift. The Sun and Moon in Aquarius have held up a mirror to the systems you live inside. Mercury and Saturn in Pisces have reminded you that behind every system is a feeling. Mars and Jupiter in Cancer have shown you where your body is asking for protection. Venus and Chiron in Aries have gently nudged you toward cleaner honesty. You don't have to resolve all of that today. If you walk away with one clearer pattern and one moment where you chose not to overcorrect, that is enough. If you notice that your shoulders dropped a little because you didn't rewrite that message for the 6th time, that is enough. If you say one simple truth without over-explaining, that is enough. The sky is not demanding a radical reinvention. It's offering alignment between awareness and sensitivity. Virgo themes of perfection are softened here by Aquarius perspective and Pisces compassion. You don't have to optimize your entire personality. You don't have to eliminate every flaw. You don't have to perform growth. You can let yourself be competent and human at the same time. You don't have to choose between being strong and being real. As the evening settles in, you might take one slow breath and reflect on this question. Where did I loosen my grip today, even slightly? That small loosening matters, because real change rarely begins with a dramatic cut. It begins with a quieter boundary, a steadier breath, a willingness to tolerate imperfection without rushing to fix it. And sometimes, that is the most grounded form of strength there is.